Thank you,
Thank you,
snowboarding.
snowboarding.
Thank you,
snowboarding.
snowboarding.
Snowboarding, grazie, grazie.
Hey friends, how you doing? My name is Chris Cracknell. You are listening to Thank You Snowboarding, the podcast that is all about UK snowboarding, its culture and its history by those who were there. And we do this with the kind support of our friends at the Snowboard Asylum, who have been looking after snowboarders since the very beginning of time, it would seem. And they look after us, and they can look after you too, whether you're new to your journey of snowboarding or you've been shredding for decades. They still have all the equipment and the knowledge that you need to make the best decisions about what kit to use for whether you're going snowboarding on snow, at the domes, or even on dry slope. So go check those guys out. So how you doing out there? The season is trucking along. We are now in mid-March and the world is going slightly mad. I hope you've been getting some snowboarding in. If you haven't, why not? It'll be summer soon and then you'll miss it. And then you'll be pining for it again until next winter. So yeah, if you haven't booked anything yet, make sure you get yourself sorted and get yourself to a dry slope, to a snow dome, or out to the mountains. Anywhere you go snowboarding is always good. Build something in your garden like Jamie Nichols. Build a rail setup, build a little kicker setup, get some pallets, get a few mates round, get a few beers in, make it happen. That's what I'd do. We're kind of the Olympics now feels like a bit of a long lost memory. As I'm recording this, the natural selection's going to be kicking off. So keep an eye out for that. Proper snowboarding, what am I saying? Maybe the more snowboarders snowboarding, I should say. I've seen clips already by Giggy Ruff. He's out there and he's a friend of the podcast. Not that he's been on, but he is a friend of the podcast. Yeah, he's out there. He'll be my... he's always good to watch. So, yeah, that's happening. So, if, I guess, get into that as you can. You might be watching it back on repeat if you don't know about it yet. Basically, if you don't know about what the natural selection is, if you're new to this podcast, if the snowboarding is man-made jumps and kickers and half-pipes, then the natural selection is pretty much the polar opposite. It's free ride, man-made, well, sort of, I guess there's probably a bit of man-made features, but covered in tons and tons of powder in a natural arena up in Revelstoke in Canada. And it's pretty exciting to watch. They've kind of made a really good format out of it now, and lots of drone footage, and it's really exciting and cool. So go and check that out if you haven't already. This week's guest, let's not forget the reason we're here. This week's guest is a guy called Sketch from up there in Scotland. He was definitely a face around the UK scene, kind of late 90s, early 2000s, and is still frothing for it up in Scotland. He's taking part in the Scottish Freeride Tour, which is I hadn't even heard about, and that seems like a pretty cool idea. I guess the challenge will always be the conditions, but Scottish riders are a bit more hardy than maybe their southern compatriots. Scottish snowboarders are fucking hardcore. And I think Sketch is one of the hardcore. And he's also got a lot of stories, and he's certainly lived a life. He's had a lot of fun. And it was great to chat to him. We had a few troubles with Zoom, so there's a bit of editing in this one. So, yeah, just lock in and hold tight. Because, Sketch is a great character and as I said, an absolute frother still for snowboarding. So, let's get into it. Why wait around? Here we go. Sketch.
And what's funny is I've never wore a snowboard helmet ever. I just didn't have the surroundings. And then I was taking part in the Scottish Freeride Champs at the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And you had to wear a helmet, so I borrowed my mate's helmet, which was obviously too wee for me. So then I've started looking at helmets and scoffed on a helmet. And when you're like, do I like that? Do I not? And the moment it's not available, It's the thing that you must have more than anything in your whole life.
Yeah.
To the point where I messaged him going, dude, you got any of your helmets kicking about? So yeah, big fan of Scove. I feel a lot of pressure today after listening to Nate's one yesterday.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, right, okay. My story is about my mate Shandy jumping off a barn at the left, and fucking he's talking about Lewis Hamilton in Japan.
It's good. Like, your mate Shandy sounds like a legend just from his name.
So yeah, it's I was like, how'd you compete with that? You know?
Well, you don't have to compete with that. That's the joy of this. It's not a competition. It's not who's the funniest or the best. It's just
that thank God for that.
Everyone's got their own story.
Oh, dude, it's mad. So how everything links up. Like when Nate was talking about Jimmy Goodrich,
yeah,
he was working for Nike when we were doing with Syndicate, when we were doing all the uni champs,
right?
And I actually literally just sold the jacket he gave me, this ACG puffer with all the Polaroid photos on it. I literally just sold that in vintage just like a month ago to try and get some funds together for Japan. And I was thinking about, I wonder what he's up to now. And there he is. Monster. So yeah, big fan of the show.
That's nice to hear.
A lot of running, and that is just my happy place. And I think what I love about listening to your podcast is it's the diversity, and it just takes us back into times that were amazing that you just don't think about anymore. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's Russ talking about High Wycombe or Nate talking about Vale and all those sort of things. And I think that's what's amazing about British snowboarding, that 30 years later, I don't even want to think about it, 20, 30 years later, you're still able to have conversations about it, but also just putting a smile on your face. You know what I mean? It's and I think that's the strength on all that. And it's mad because obviously I know you and your brother, but we've got same friends in a lot of aspects, but we've never really crossed paths. You know what I mean?
No, well, I was just trying to think about that before I chat to everybody. I'm like, how do we know each other, or do we know each other? And there's some people, like Chris Carr, who, like we used to hang out sort of in the same places all the time, but we never actually had a proper conversation. But then I'm pretty certain, like, we've crossed paths at I'm going to say High Wycombe.
Yeah,
High
Wycombe.
There.
Yeah, High Wycombe, I think, was the first main comp for me, and that was, we drove down and we were late to the party sort of thing, so the barrier was already shut,
right?
And of course, coming from Scotland, you knew that England, everyone was just full of thieves, and you were just like,
how dare you?
How are we gonna survive here? And then so we parked up, and then we went. There was obviously some party on where, I think, with the farmer, and we're heading handsprings to the bales of hay that were on fire and stuff like that. And then in the morning, I walked back to my car, and it turned out I left both the windows wide open. And I was like, oh my God, nothing's been stolen. This is amazing. But that was the first experience, I think, for me on a proper comp, because it was still like slalom and stuff as well. Do you remember Gandhi Fisher?
That name rings a bell.
Yeah, he had older brother James. So there was I think that was maybe the first of featuring in Snowboard UK, because naturally I had the bib with 69 on it because it was hilarious back then. And but we ended up getting one of the...
still pretty funny in my mind.
Absolutely. I would always play that hand in poker. And we got one of the crash mats and ended up taking all the sponge out of it and duct taping that as padding, just sort of taking the piss out of people that were like proper into their slalom and stuff like that. But the bits were so big that I couldn't see where I was going. And when I dropped my arm to see where I was going, one of the poles smacked me right in the face and gave me a bleeding nose. And I was like, this is dangerous.
Did a shot of you with a bloody nose make it into one of the mags?
there was a
I've got
shot.
a vague recollection of
Yeah,
something like
there was
this.
there was a bloody nose. There was one of us taping, and then there was one of me just sort of faking a laugh with my '69 bib on. And Joe, what? The best bit I remember on that was I had the camo special blend pants. Do you remember them
What,
back in the
the
day?
digital camo?
No, this was the
This is before
OG
that.
camo,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they had the
Nice.
army and they had the snow camo. So my mate Nell had the snow camo and I had the army ones. And I spend many a Saturday night scrolling through Vinted and eBay and everything in the hope of someone has suddenly found them in the back of their wardrobe so I can relive those days. But yeah, that was the first comp, and I remember Pat Murray and Duncan Carr were the big standouts for me, and I
Yeah.
remember I think it was a K2 banner at the bottom of the big air kicker, but it was gnarly, like just Dendex in general. It's always funny. I mean, there's now we're we're going up north to ride and stuff, and then my mates are like, "Oh well, it depends on the weather." And you're like, "Dude, we used to ride Dendex. Like, does it, Scotland's actually got snow, so if we can't see it, it's still better than riding Dendex." But I mean, you look back on it and the passion you had to have then, because we rode Kendall, which seemed like the moon because it had all that black
Yeah, of
snowflake
course.
stuff.
Yeah.
But the same thing, we'd drive down and we'd ride Tamworth, and I'm up in St Andrews, like an hour north of Edinburgh. So I'm driving like 5-6 hour round trip to hit a quarter pipe that I don't know what I'm doing, drop over the other side, and then drive back again, Or there was I think it was that comp, and there was a bit in Snowboard UK, and Samson was running Snowboard UK at the time. And we were down with Crusher Todd, Scott Todd, who had like a massive stable of amazing riders. And then I
Yeah.
was like the kid in the community side of it, where it just somehow got given a board or whatever. And so Samson and Crusher, like, were outside I'm sure it was Tamworth, and they're like, right, can you just stand on this bridge? We want to get a profile picture. We're going to do an introducing or whatever in Snowboard UK. And I was like, all right. And he's going, no, just put one leg on the other banner on the other side. So I'm standing on this bridge. And then Crusher just runs and absolutely nails me. And they'd planned the whole thing. And it was the only sequence I think I got in Snowboard UK. And it was me falling in a river and amongst some shopping trolley and everything else. And the line was just sketch, trust us. Actually, I had two sequences. The other one was how to use a Poma. That took a few takes as well when I was decking myself in this Alp trying to get up that.
What an illustrious career.
But yeah, that must have been the first times. Because see, back at High Wycombe, was it Chris Bennett that was emceeing back then? Do you remember him?
I mean, I remember him he was just always on the mic, wasn't he? Because he liked talking.
No, but he was always a fun guy. But yeah, I mean, none of it was ever planned, but I bumped into him in Vegas. I go to Vegas a lot, and I just bumped into him, like literally actually banged into him, and he was hammered. And I'm like, Bennett, he's like, fucking hell, sketch. And then I think the year after, again, no idea, bumped into him at Konbini in Japan. Yeah. And then the year after that, we ended ourselves doing laps in North Star in Tahoe. And you're just like I say, none of it was planned. He's still got energy, that's for sure. But he wasn't the same level of MCing.
Didn't he go and work for Lucasfilm or something like that? He went and did something to do with, I'm sure he had something to do with Star Wars.
Oh, really?
I think
so. I only knew Maria as being the Star Wars person.
Of course.
Yeah, I'll need to find out on that front. But
I mean, it sounds like you're getting around. Like, you still, and you mentioned snowboarding at the Scottish Freeride.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I'm just back from Japan actually. Just had 3 weeks in Japan. That? Phenomenal as ever. That's the fifth time. That's the fifth once in a lifetime trip. To the point where actually Samson messaged me, so hopefully it's going to turn into a Reason article.
Oh, cool.
Because it's the fifth time, you're like, right, we want to get away from all the crowds, even though we are the crowds, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of little resorts where there isn't many white people. I've been trying to learn Japanese
Right.
for that reason as well, which has been pretty cool and obviously impossible. Um, and then it's still, I mean, Japan at its peak had over 700 resorts, but
Right.
it's still got 495 resorts.
Yeah.
So, but we're still rocking up to places. There's one called Seki Onsen, 2 chairs, and it's like 20 quid, and that includes your lunch. And
No
then
way.
and they sell t-shirts which were sadly sold out, and they've just got "fuck ski patrol" on it because they don't groom nothing, they don't have ski patrol. You just go do these chairs, and one of them's a wee sort of pizza box
Yeah.
type chair. And that day we got like over 2 foot of fresh, and
No
we're
way.
just it gets tracked out pretty fast, but there's still so much fun to be had away from Niseko and Hakuba and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I'm way to Colorado in a start of March, so a month's time, and that's where I done all my seasons, was in Vail. So still got friends there. So
Yeah.
pretty lucky. Like a buddy of mine who comes to St Andrews to play golf, he gives me his house in Vail. So
It's a fair swap.
yeah, you just buy the Epic Pass. And I know everyone hates on Vail resorts, but Vail as a mountain's phenomenal. Apart from this year, there's no snow. But on the Epic Pass front, we're paying $700 for a locals pass.
Yeah.
And our last full season, our passes were like $2,200.
Wow.
You know, so it's got its benefits, but yeah, obviously the man is the man, sort of thing. But yeah, I still try and get away for maybe 5-6 weeks a year, and then in between that, still ride Scotland. I've still had some of the best days up there. You go through the week and it's just like having the place to yourself, you know what I mean? And with the wind, every run's like freshies because all the snow's blown back in.
I saw some. I think the Cairngorm Mountain's been posting a lot recently, and they were like, "Oh yeah, the road. You know, we keep having to clear the road," and I'm like, "Fucking hell! Surely they can just get the road clear."
Did
But then they sort of showed a shot of the wind, and it's like, "Oh my god, look at fucking that!"
Well, so we had the comp at the weekend, and that was at Glen Shee. So what they've got now it's the Scottish Freedom Tour, it's called. And it's one where you're like, you just want to support, you know what I mean? You still just want to support the industry and everything else. I'm going up to Glen Shee in the Lecht, and I hate the people that hate on Scotland after they've been somewhere else. And you're just like, no, you go with the right mindset and you'll have a blast. It doesn't matter, but it's a bonus if it's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, we're meant to go. It's called the Tiger Run. That's the steepest one at Glen Shee. So the plan was the competitors got exclusive use of the chair. That's right. There's still a couple of chairlifts there. But it was too windy for the chairlift. So we ended up having to get a T-bar up and then hike. And then everyone was late for the start of the comp because there was it's obviously all levels of people just riding in Scotland.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't get up T-bars. So these two guys that just kept falling, coming down, getting up, and then like everyone was late because everyone was waiting in line to get up this T-bar, you know. But the wind, I mean, what was it the other day? It was like 90-mile-an-hour gusts.
Yeah.
You know, there's a bit like Glen Shee. If you had all the same cover, Glen Shee's the best. That's the biggest one. Glencoe's got the best natural terrain.
Yeah.
Cairngorm's just ruined themselves building that funicular above ground, so it keeps getting blocked when it does snow. The Lecht's great for beginners, and the Nevis is in this weird window where it does maintenance on its gondola in January.
Right.
So it shuts for a month.
No way.
But they seem to be more concentrating on mountain biking and
Yeah,
stuff
they have
now.
big mountain biking things there in the summer, don't
Yeah.
they? So I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, so, but like Glen Shea at the moment, they posted a thing last night. They got 40-foot drifts
Wow.
over the back, and it's the same thing. It's like that video of that guy trying to clear water from the sea. They're clearing the snow, and then the wind just keeps blowing it back in, so they
Yeah.
can't. The pomas are buried, so they can't open over the back. But we're talking about maybe just splitting up there tomorrow because weekends are rammed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but the drifting they have there is just I've never seen cover like that for a long time. They said that like Scotland and Australia would be the first to be affected by global warming, and you've seen that since I've been snowboarding.
Yeah.
Like they're on the brink all the time. So if
Yeah.
you are listening to this, just go and buy a pass and just hang out with your buddies. You know what I mean? And just support them.
Yeah,
It's like,
I nearly pulled the trigger last weekend because the TSA were up there doing a demo at Cairngorm.
do you know what? I seen that
And
after.
I was like, oh, if I didn't have to do my tax return, like I was like, shit, I can't not do that.
Well, because I got a message off Duncan Carr,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to be up in Navimore," and I was like, "Oh," and it was the same day as the comp at Glen Shea.
Yeah.
So, but what they're having to do, and this sums up Scotland, is each comp has got a month window.
Yeah.
So they'll then say, right, this is provisional for February, so the next comp's going to be at the Nevis. But because the Nevis is only opening tomorrow, they're like, we can't hold the comp the same day it's opening. They want to just make sure it's settled. So then you get an alert saying, right, this is a provisional week. So at the moment it's the 21st, 22nd of February. They give a couple of days. And then on the Thursday, they'll then say, right, this is go. But they've left movement that they can go to a different resort and stuff like that. Because as small as Scotland is, you've still got the East Coast and West Coast, and they do get totally different snow. I don't know. Did you ever watch the movie Grounded? And it was all about skiing and snowboarding in Scotland during COVID.
No, but I did see. There was somebody that was posting about it. I saw some short things.
Yeah, I mean, it's about an hour long, and it was some of the guys I know. It was one of the guys I used to sponsor, Job, and Scotland got all-time weather, of course, during COVID when no one was able to.
When I was up there with Johnny Barr, he was talking about that.
And you're just like, this is typical. You know what I mean? And the thing was, obviously being outdoors was fine.
Yeah.
And you're like, but you've got gloves on and that, so it doesn't matter if people are holding the same thing. But it turned out, I think a couple of people died on the roads because the roads were so bad. So them trying to get up there as well. Because Scotland was different from England. We had, at one point, it was a 5-mile radius. You were only allowed 5 miles from your house unless it was work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could have set up the Scottish ski industry forever. But if you get a chance, go on YouTube. It's called Grounded, and
okay, I'll find it and put a link in.
Some of the stuff on that is phenomenal, and you can see then the difference that the East Coast got the better snow, but if you're across the West Coast, it is more gnarly, like Glencoe, Nevis, and stuff. So yeah, I still live for snowboarding. You know what I mean? Obviously we're not as young as we were, but that's the reason I take on extra jobs, and that's the reason that I try and keep fit. Is I just want to keep doing it. There's still nothing that puts a bigger smile on my face. You know what I mean? And not just the strapping in and riding, but just the anticipation of it and the excitement of, right, where are we going to go next? You know what I mean? Like, I went on one of Stentiford's. I know you had him on a few months back, and we done one of his splitboarding trips in Norway.
Oh yeah,
and that was phenomenal. Like, I've started getting into splitboarding because, again, on the Scotland front, the snow doesn't always come all the way down the hill. So a lot of times now people are now mountain biking up to the snow line and then skinning up.
Yeah.
So we went to Lofoten a couple of years back on his trip, and that was incredible. I'm an absolute Jerry going up the hill. Like, I can't ski for toffee. And so he gives the chat. He's like, right. And I'm going down. I'll go anywhere you want. But going up, can you just go easy?
Yeah.
But we lucked out. So, I mean, every day was bluebird. We seen the Northern Lights without it being it through your phone. We actually seen it as like proper Ghostbusters shit.
Really?
Like on the last day, you were splitting in the morning and then surfing in the Arctic in the afternoon. And then they had down by the fjords, there was a sauna, but the fjords were frozen in the morning. And then when you came off the hill, you would then go in the sauna. I've never lost the feeling in my feet so fast in my life. And that's someone that swims in the seas in Scotland. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it is. I do love it. It's just for me. It still has the fire as much as it did back in the day, doing my first season or just doing my first holiday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just love it, and I love that it just makes you explore the world. You know, but you do look back, obviously, with us chatting. I started looking back, and two things. It made me smile a lot, and then it really threw my midlife crisis going, where the hell did the world and the life go from back in those days of us riding, you know what I mean? But it's still, the stoke is still there, which is great, you know?
But I mean, you alluded to kind of, you do, like when you were talking about how flexible things have got to be, like in Scotland, I mean, you were sort of, you kind of almost alluded to what you do, or like you load up work for certain time. Like, I actually don't know what you do, or, you know, I now know where you like roughly where you live, but like, I don't really know anything about you or sort of what your story is at all. So
I mean, if we're going way back, when I was younger, I represented county and country for like athletics and cross country and football and stuff.
Yeah.
And I played a bit of semi-professional.
Right.
Couldn't believe when you got paid to play football. And then I done ACL. Annoyingly, a week before the cup final, it was on national TV. And then that then just sort of took me to other places, in the sense that on a snowboard front, my mate Danny just picked up this snowboard. We had no idea. This was back in white days. And we went up our local hill, our trainers, under moonlight, and just strapped in. And how we didn't break our ankles, I have no idea. And I'm like, this is amazing. I want to get involved in this. And that was the sort of end of my football and the beginning of something new. I'm the sort that if I like something, I'll just go head first into it, sort of thing. Yeah. And so naturally, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to snowboard, I'll need to skateboard. So I bought a skateboard, and not joking, dude, stood on it, went to ride off a curb, and couldn't have went more than 3 meters, came off and dislocated my shoulder. And
oh, man.
And that was the first of 113 dislocations on my shoulder. And my mate's like, I'm going, well, help me then. He's like, well, help you with what? And I'm like, well, hold my arm. Like, I honestly thought my arm was going to fall off.
Are you one of those guys that can now like pop their shoulder back in?
Well, this was the thing. Obviously, everyone watched Lethal Weapon. So I was like, right, what is it Mel Gibson does? So I walked up to a lamppost, and then there was a way to do it. And I was like, nah, that hurts too much. And then it went back in. But it got to the point after an operation, there was a comp up in the Nevis, and then my shoulder came out, and it was like something out of Braveheart. There was people pulling my legs and pulling my arms trying to get it back in. because it was just that they'd cut the tendons, so it was that tight. So yeah, so I then went and bought a setup, 6 months interest free from Boardwise at the time. Rocked up to Glen Shee that winter, thinking it was cool as hell. And then as I'm walking along, someone stops and is like, "Excuse me, mate, you got your bindings on back to front." Because I hadn't had a lesson or any. I was like, this will be fine. And just strapped in, rode right off the nursery slope into rocks, had my first gouge out my board, and that was it. I was just totally hooked. And at the time, my dad had a food wholesale business, so I was sort of working for him. And then I worked in a restaurant as well to just pay for going snowboarding. So I think it was like Pizza Land or something at the time. And I actually looked to do a transfer from St Andrews to Aviemore so I could do my season in Aviemore. And I think the staff accommodation got condemned, and that's what put pay to that. But at the same time, because I was working in a restaurant, I was like, at the time, everyone called me Wonder Waiter behind my back, obviously, because I was so good. And I was just chatting, St Andrews being a tourist town, like home of golf. I was just chatting to every American that was in there, asking them about where's good to go snowboarding. And so one day this guy's in and going, "Oh, there's the girl that has our guest house. She's Scottish, but her husband's from Colorado." And I only knew Colorado at this time through Dumb and Dumber. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And goes, "You should go along and talk." And in this world now, it just seems nuts even just going to a stranger and knocking on the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just go to this guest house, knock on the door, and I'm like, "Are you Sue?" She's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "I'm Sketch. I hear that blah, 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 Colorado. Come on in." So that was it. Scottish hospitality, cup of tea. And then she just gets out all the photos, because this is before phones were invented. And then she's like, "Oh, if you go here, you can talk to this guy." And kind of like what you would be doing about your home resort sort of thing.
Yeah,
Just so
course.
passionate about it. So I'm like, that sounds amazing. Right, brilliant. Okay, I'm in. And summer goes, and next minute I find myself in Denver airport, right, on my own, going to a phone box, because again, like I said, there's no phones. And all I have, dude, is a bit of paper with a number that says Angus and a phone number. I didn't even know if the guy was in or on holiday or anything. And I just like come off the plane, phone it. I'm like, "Gus." He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Sketch, I'm friends with Sue Swim. Is there any way I can just crash at yours for the night till I sort myself out?" And can you imagine doing that now?
I know, it's wild, isn't it?
It just like, that's so mental. I mean, I need to plan stuff a year in advance or I'm having like palpitations.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, sure. And I still see him to this day.
Really?
And he's still got the bottle of whiskey that I brought him, because it turns out he doesn't like whiskey. And it's still sat in his house. And I ended up crashing at his for a couple of nights, and then he's like, "Oh, mate, Jeff's got a spare room. If you look after his kid, then you can stay with him." And then that then led to, that was, my mate came out, Steve Patterson or something, I can't remember. He had a good method in him. And we just done this season. And then that just then led to the next season. I worked in Jeff's diner. He had a 24, have you been to Vale?
Yes, I went to Vale for an Airwalk sales meeting years and years ago.
Airwalk, wow.
Yeah, that was like 90, must have been like 98, 99, something like that.
Yeah, so that would, because 99 they had the World Ski Champs in Vale.
I don't know, we were there like early December. So.
Right, okay. So there was in Lion's Head, which was the ghetto at the time, there was a 24-hour diner called DJ's. So I worked there, but I worked midnight to 7 in the morning, because I didn't want to give up a day's riding. So every time, I never had a green card. Sorry if you're listening. And
any ICE agents kicking?
Yeah, exactly. Fuck ICE. And so I rode 89 days out of 90, because you're your card was just 90 days sort of thing.
Yeah.
And each time it was, and the reason I missed the day is because I knocked myself out. And Tim's like, I think it was with Tim at the time, and he's like, right, where are you? I'm like, Scotland. He's going, no, you're not, mate. And I was like, so that just kind of went from that. And then you're asking about a work side of things. So I just took on the family business, bought my dad out. But then that was again flexible because he would then cover for me if I wanted to go away snowboarding. He would go back in kind of thing. And then at that point, my mum, she got dementia, and so no one could cover for me because it was her and my dad covering. So I just then sold the business, and it couldn't have timed it any better. They sold it, and then COVID happened a month later or 6 weeks later.
Right.
But at this point, I'd created a student storage company. So, like, St Andrews got a lot of international students and stuff.
Yeah.
So we provide them with the boxes, they fill them up, go away in May, store them over the summer, bring them back in September, and that frees up the whole winter.
Sweet.
Yeah, and that during COVID, this is why we were joking about Zoom. I never used Zoom because at the time I created a video packing store service, and we would just FaceTime the students, walk around their flats and pack up their rooms.
Yeah.
During COVID, and then I pitched it to the university, and we ended up packing up, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 rooms. I had 50 staff.
Fucking
50 staff working for me. It was the most stressful time of my life. But then I went like 9 months without a day off, and it was like 110-hour weeks. But then it just cleared all the credit card debt and stuff. And then now it means, again, I'm super flexible to do this sort of thing. But again, I'll still work more in the summer. Like I do a lot of caddying and stuff as well for the golf. You get to meet some cool people.
How'd you get into that?
I play a lot of golf anyway, and it was just I'd got asked, and then I just thought this is a good way of getting the steps up. And then you end up meeting some amazing people. But probably the best one was I was on the bag for Rob McElhaney, Mac out of Always Sunny, and Welcome to Wrexham. So,
I know Welcome to Wrexham.
Yeah, so I was speaking, I'm going, see, Welcome to Wrexham, can you not, get the timeline a bit closer? Because it's really hard trying to not find out what the scores are.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's like, we're actually talking to Disney about that and stuff. And he was playing with a bunch of Hall of Famers, baseball players. And I'm like, no, when you know people are famous, but I have no idea who you are, sort of thing. Yeah. But again, good crack. But same thing, that I'm like, right, if I do the caddying, that means I can, rather than going to one all-time trip, I can do two. You know what I mean? So again, that was the reason on that. So that's how I've got the time in the winter. So I'm super lucky on that front. You know what I mean? It just gives you time to do what you want. I wish I'd created that when I was younger and was able to drop more than 2-foot cliffs, you know.
But so what you did, like seasons in Vale, how many did you do there?
So I've done 3 seasons in Vale. The last one was in 2008. The third season, none of us worked. So it was me, Shandy, he was called Psycho at the time because he was dropping off of barn roofs and stuff. Johnny Mack, he was the founder of Edinburgh shop Freeze Pro Shop. I don't know if you heard of that. And that was like a ski and snowboard shop. He was an amazing rider. And then Tom Selway, he was another one of Crusher Todd's crew. He had the best method out of them all. Couldn't do a front one, but his methods were amazing. And that was our last season in Vale in 2008. And it was funny because we were still into parks and stuff. I still like riding parks, to be honest. And we got to the point, and it sounds mad now, we were bitching because it snowed every day. And we got freshies for about a month.
Right.
You know? And Tom actually called himself Fat Camp. So yeah,
I was wondering whether I heard that right or not.
yeah. Well, what it was he was a park rider, so he'd never ridden powder. So he had this tiny wee Rome artifact, and he just couldn't ride powder. So he was the one that called himself that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, I feel like the kid at Fat Camp who's just stuck at the back and can never catch up with everyone.
Oh man, I've been that dude when I lived with Munson and Kenty in Les Arts.
Oh, dude.
Just trying to keep up with them all the time.
And there was a bit in Vale where there's just loads of cat tracks over one of the back bowls.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't always listen to where we were going, and he hit one cat track too many, which meant he had to then hike out. And it took him 2 laps of us doing the chairlift to literally hike about 10 meters because it was so deep, and he was just breathing out his ass, you know. But back then, you had proper seasonaires, because that's when, obviously, as you've discussed with Nate and Tim and stuff, there was a bunch of English people out there. There was a bunch of Aussies, bunch of South Africans, because everyone got visas back then to work.
Yeah.
Whereas now you just don't have it. And then the affordability for staff housing and stuff just isn't there anymore. So you used to have in Vale these, like Lion's Head was the ghetto sort of thing where everyone would live, and that's where seasonaires would hang out at the bars and ride and stuff like that, and finish at the end of the day. And Vale Village was for all the posh people with the fur coats and everything. Mm-hmm. And then it's now just posh everywhere, you know what I mean? Do you think that between Brexit and the world, do you think the life of a seasonaire is still a thing? It seems so scarce now.
Yeah, I've been wondering that. Like I went back to I went back to where I did my first season. Went back to Val d'Isère to interview Skier Jim, and I was walking around there and just trying to sort of see, like, you could see the echoes of those days, but you're just like wondering, like, how does a group of dirtbag kids turn up here now and not know anyone or anything? Money. Yeah, not know anyone or anything, with like literally a few £100 in their pocket, and change their life, make a new fucking path for themselves. I don't know. They're certainly not doing it there, and I wonder if there's smaller resorts where maybe people are doing that still.
Yeah.
Or maybe that culture's completely gone, and because of, as you were saying, turning up in Denver airport with a phone number and kind of hoping that's enough. And, I just think everything is so much more planned and researched, and where you're going. Like, I wonder if the spirit of adventure isn't there. And obviously with Brexit, you can't just, you can do 3 months, but you can't, can you just rock up somewhere and sort of create a new life for yourself? I just don't know that you can. Everything has to be more put in place.
Yeah, and I think as well with the world of Airbnb, it's then harder, because before you'd be like, right, we'll rent this house or we'll find this house for a long-term rental, whereas now it's harder to get the houses as well,
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that the other day, because when we were in Japan, there was still, that one was a lot of traveling, so there was like 6 flights, 8 different accommodations, 12 trains, couple of car hires and stuff. On one of them, we were staying in a sort of chalet thing, and there was seasonaires that were there. Do you know what I mean? They still had that spirit, and that was just what made me think, God, I've not seen many of these about,
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder about that. I mean, I definitely see there's a lot of young people coming into snowboarding, which is amazing.
Yeah.
That definitely, I think that went through a bit of a lull where young people saw skiing. And so there's definitely young people there's a new energy about it, which is really exciting. But yeah, I just wonder if that life is still available to people, kind of that spirit of, and you don't know you're going to be living, you don't even know where you're going to be sleeping. Do you know what I mean? And you don't know who you're going to end up meeting, and all these chances you know, kind of life just shaking the dice and giving you what you get, and all the sort of random people that you meet, everything's a lot more kind of predictable.
Yeah, it's
Predictable, is
just
that the word?
regimented. And part of that's out of fear. I mean, I think maybe you were just bolder then because there wasn't the internet. You didn't know the shady world it was also.
No, well, I do believe naivety. I think naivety has certainly played a massive part in my life, like not knowing what the outcomes are going to be and just thinking, well,
Oh,
fuck it.
dude,
I
I
think
still
that
don't know what I want to do, you know?
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I mean, that was like on the season front, that was pretty much the reason I created Syndicate, you know, because I'm like, right, if I sell enough t-shirts, that'll pay for another season sort of thing, you
Yeah.
know? And it comes back to naivety. I wasn't going out there trying to create an actual business or anything, you know?
So tell
And
me about Syndicate, because I heard about it, but I never quite. Well,
so,
I never sort of saw it. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, it was one of those. So, what was your local dry slope? Where did you?
Our local dry slope was Bromley Dry Slope,
Right.
but we also sort of went to Hillingdon, so occasionally to Beckton.
So, I'd heard of the Hillingdon mob back then,
Yeah,
and that was the thing. So for us, for me, it was Hill End.
right.
So that was an hour for me to get to Hill End. And back then, I don't know if you remember, we called ourselves the LSD, so it was the Lothian Snowboard Division. And Hill
Nice.
End, just being haters, were like, right, you can only put jumps up on certain times. So
Yeah,
it was a Friday night, 7 till 9, Sunday night, 5 till 7, and I think the occasional Tuesday. And we had to, the ramps were built, but we had to carry them out, tie them in. No one was
yeah,
taking any responsibility for anything, sort of thing. And for me, it was like 2.5, 3 hour round trip. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
To ride the Dendex. But I would do it every Friday, every Sunday. And there was times where, and this was at its peak, you know what I mean? It was like Scott McMorris, Grant and Elliot, Neve,
Yeah.
Hamish McKnight, you know, just all the good guys. And obviously Scott Todd, and there's a guy, Johnny Quest, who was a massive part of it as well. And there was so many people there were like 100 people turning up on a Friday night, and it was one of those where like, let's see who can go the furthest, you know. And all the stuff that you're just like, what are you doing, just pointing it on Dendex and then catching your edge on that little bump that was just before the ramp. And I rolled up the ramp side. I like to tell people I get called sketch because I used to do graffiti and drawing, but it was definitely my riding. And so we then petitioned and got Helen to then build the Snowflex kickers and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
some of the stuff that went on back then was just absolutely wild. And ironically, we're having a permanent jump slope. It lost a bit of the scene because people would then just go at different times.
Go
Do you know
whenever.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, the Friday night was still a good one. There was one time, there's this guy, Simon Leggett, he was called, probably still is to be fair. And rather than just getting the Poma going up, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there's a metal sort of cube at the top of the Poma. So it was a low start at Hill End, and he just grabs this thing and just hangs from it. And of course, he's only like 6 inches off the ground just for bants. But at the moment that starts going steep, he's getting higher and higher to the point he's looking across at us with absolute fear. And then there's a guy, this big fat bald guy with Alsatian, who hated, I don't know why he worked there, he just hated all of us. Anyway, he stops and the thing comes over going, get off. And he starts like running up the slope. And we're all looking going, what is going to happen here? Like size 20 feet up easily. And then I don't think he knew it, but at the time he just thought he could get lower by then reaching for the Poma. But then when he grabbed the Poma, it then released the rope. And it was like someone out of James Bond. He just went, came down, then ran and hid amongst us. And this guy was losing his shit at us for the rest of the night. And then there was another time, I mean, this is how poor we were back then. We're like, right, we don't want to buy a pass. We'll just we'll hike up. and then just ride the kicker. But then the same guy would then come up. When he came up, we'd ride down, and he would just be hating it. Now I know why he hates us, actually. And it was one afternoon, and we were riding the kickers, and then he came up, but then he stood at I don't know when you were last up at Hill End, but he stood at the sort of hip bit where was the exit. And we were like, it was proper Mexican standoff. And we're like, fuck, how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to get out of this? And then we're like, we'll all just go at once. He can't stop all of us. So we're like, just had this train going off the jump and then riding past this guy who's sort of running sideways trying to stop us. And then we get to the bottom, we're like, what the fuck are we meant to do now? So we all, just instinct, we all unstrapped and ran and hid in the bushes. And we weren't 12, do you know what I mean? We're in our 20s. Yeah. And then this guy's standing at my mate's car on the radio going, right, they're going nowhere, I'm at the car. And then we're phoning another mate of mine going, any chance you can come and pick us up? We're at Hill End. And they're like, but have you not got your car? Like, yeah, we're kind of hiding in the bushes to save £6. You know, it's just like, so there was a definite on-off love affair with Hill End. But from that, I was trying to create, well, the Hill End Mob was like one of the coolest names ever, wasn't it? So I was like, right, we'll call ourselves the Hill End Syndicate. You know what I mean? And then it was like, or we'll just call ourselves the Syndicate. And again, I was still doing a lot of graffiti and stuff at the time. So I just done some tags and just like ended up printing it. It was actually Scott Todd's ex-wife who printed them on a T-shirt. And again, there was some not very political phrases back then of support your local hooker. And I think one of the T-shirts just said wanker on it. I was all out of ideas pretty soon. And so Syndicate just kind of stuck at that point. And we were out, I think, was it a year where the Brits sort of joined up with the British uni champs in Les Deux Alpes, I think it was. And I'd been doing a bit, I was like the Timu version. There was Ed and Lee who done the MCing, and then I was the Timu version of that. So I then got asked to MC some Red Bull stuff. And then do the AIM series until they banned me.
Hang on, whoa, rewind. Let's go into this.
I think there was...
So for the listener, the AIM series was put together by Stu and Spence, Stuart Brass, who's had an episode, and Spencer Claridge, and it was artificial, indoor and mountain. It was to create like an overarching series of events to get people into like, basically they would then do outreach in schools, and it was a way of getting people into snowboarding, but then giving this sort of
a bit
contest, a bit of structure.
Yeah,
it was kind of like a bit of a goal as well. Yeah,
a point series, because at the time it was at Basie. We're trying to do a point series and stuff as well. And there was people that were working that system. Like, they were going and competing in Luxembourg and everything, so there could be, like, Team GB and all that sort of thing. I think it was trying...
Like that kid who's currently competing for the UK in the Big Air, but no one's ever heard of it.
Yeah. But, like, and there's a thing came up...
He's French and New Zealand, isn't he? But somehow he's got a British passport somewhere.
There's a thing that came up in the memories, and it was that skier girl. Do you remember that done the ski half pipe in the Olympics? And you're like, what the hell is... And I think her dad had donated to the ski school or something like that, and she got in. She was like the Australian breakdancer sort of thing. But I think at the time, AIM Series was trying to... Snowboarding was cool, but it also had that sort of edge to it. And I think it was just trying to give it a bit more credibility and recognition. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's great.
It was brilliant, you know, and it was obviously a lot of work, because there was so many slopes back then. You were literally traveling every weekend, you know.
I mean, I think it's a real shame that doesn't exist.
It's
but
mad
that still does exist. As you say, it's like it's a lot of work for somebody, but the rewards have got to be there, surely. And it's kind of the long term of creating community and building pathways for young people to kind of see something that they might not see otherwise, and give them a chance to experience something. Like, there's got to be a whole load of
But also, do you not find as well, if you're, so when I was competing, I was not good, but I found that by competing, by the end of that weekend or whatever, I've learned something new because I'm hanging around people that are good,
Yeah.
or your human nature is making yourself push yourself harder. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So if they can create something like that again, there's going to be the encouragement of imagine just being on the start line as someone awesome with someone awesome. You know what I mean? And then they're going to go, oh, I was riding with Stu Brass or Jenny Jones or whatever back
Yeah.
then, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And you're just like, that's so rad, you know? And I feel that there's something, what was good, we were talking earlier about the Scottish Freedom Series, is there was a good mix of all ages sort of thing. And it's good having kids getting into that. Ewan Baxter looks like he's mentoring a bunch of kids and stuff there
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But why isn't that there? You know what I mean? It's
I mean, I'm assuming money
yeah, true.
as the root of all evil, and if there's no money
Yeah,
for it, but I don't know.
and
I mean, I don't know. Maybe there is money for it. You just have to look in more unusual places to get it.
or is it the? I mean, it's not the same money that gets thrown at it back then. Now, you know what I mean? Like, I'll put it this way: there's only what half a dozen snowboard shops in the UK now.
Well, quite.
Back then, you could have everyone sponsoring everything. You know what I mean? It's and it was cool, so it was easy to just find other sponsors for it. Because I mean, at the time, was it Orange was sponsoring the M Series, weren't it?
Yeah, well, they were definitely part of it. Well, I
Yeah.
think it'd be interesting if Mia scores a gold. So we're recording this the morning after the men's big air qualifiers.
Yeah.
Because there's like the Jenny Jones effect of when she won a bronze. Apparently, like the industry went nuts. You couldn't book a snowboard lesson anywhere because they were ram full. You know, like, and it'd be interesting to see if Mia was to win a gold. You know, and that'd be our first ever gold medal on snow.
And that's not a big if. That is.
Well, it seems more tangible than maybe Jenny doing what she did.
Dude,
but I mean, nothing's for certain. I certainly don't want to put any.
No
jinx
pressure.
on Mia, but like, you know, I wonder what effect that might have on snowboarding in the UK.
I hope it. I mean, from going back to the Scottish resorts side of things and everything else, I hope it just has that effect. I think people need, and in this horrible world we're in at the moment, people need heroes, you know? And I remember sitting and watching Jenny Jones and I was losing my shit at the TV, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I was in tears. I was in tears at the end
dude,
of that.
it's the same. So I met Jenny in Lax. Was that 99 at the Brits? And that was her first comp, and she was throwing backflips and stuff like that. And you're just like, and I think this comes back to the sort of whole snowboard industry. Is I got a message off Duncan Carlight we're talking about, and you're like, when did you last speak to people? But there isn't the awkwardness. Like, if you've met someone in the mountain and shared an experience in any manner, even just being in the same area, you're friends for life. You know what I mean?
I feel that.
And I think that there has to be something kind of like the Olympics when it was at London, you know, the feel good after that. If there can be something similar to that, and the likes of Mia, whatever's touring the schools, and just, you only need to get one, you know, and if you've met your hero or seen that person on TV, you know, it's good that it's accessible on iPlayer and stuff like that. It's not behind a paywall and all that kind of thing, you know, and hopefully that's going to push the next generation. It'd be interesting to see if there was a thing that was like what riders came out of AIM series that were then on to bigger and better things. You know, I mean, is that what, I don't know if it's the same timeline, but is that what sparked Jamie Nichols and that sort of thing, you know?
Maybe.
Because I remember I've got some photos from back then, and I'm on the mic, and there's Ben Kilner and Dom Harrington and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's it's so I can't fully remember what I got banned for, but I think it was just I think some people didn't like my style of MCing in the sense of if they didn't do much, I was like, well, that was shite. But I could say that because I was shit. It wasn't like elitist.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You weren't punching down. You were sort of welcome
exactly.
to my world.
But for Hill End, it was a windy day, and there was a golf course that ran parallel to Hill End.
Yeah.
So I was on the mic, and I'm like, now we'll go across to the first tee where we've got Jack Robinson. Looks like he's got a 7-iron. And then this guy's trying to play his shot, and I'm giving commentary on it. And little did I know that he could hear it because of the wind. And I'm going, 4 right. That guy's swing is terrible. And again, I could do that. I'm a shit golfer. And the golf club put in this massive complaint to Hill End about it. And I was just like, are you kidding me? So there was a lot of back and forth. Like, I was emceeing all the British Uni champs because Syndicate was the main sponsor.
Right.
And I know I'm jumping all over the place on this, but I had to pay a deposit to promise that I wouldn't swear and I wouldn't say whatever jokes or whatever, or like take the piss out of any golfers. So I had to pay like a £500 deposit to Hill End to allow me to MC.
Did you get it back?
I got it back. But that the MCing got me in trouble sometimes. It was like we were in. Did you ever go to Des Alpes much?
I went to one of the British champs there.
There was a club called Avalanche. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember going to that.
Some dodgy Russian called Boris, stereotypical, ran it, and it was a British Uni thing, and ended up being some pole dancing competition. And it was, oh my God, I forgot his name. Who was the dude that represented GB in the half pipe? Dan
Wakeham.
He's rocking his GB blazer, and then I'm on the mic, and then it ended up being this pole dancing competition. And I'm like, yeah, the winner gets a car and everything. And then this girl ends up getting naked. And then at the end, she got like some Syndicate hoodies. And then the boyfriend comes up going absolutely nuts, going, you promised her a car. And then she's like, I'm going, with her Syndicate hoodies. And like, yeah, I'm going, oh, she's so lucky. They're limited edition. So I ended up pulling out this Matchbox Mini in the week. I goes, I never said it was a real car. And I'm like, so it's okay to pimp your girlfriend out if she's winning a car. I'm like, do you think we'd be in this dingy club in Des Alpes if we had the money that we could give away a car? You know what I mean? So Syndicate just kind of grew from there. It was a lot of uni stuff. We'd do all the designs and manufacturing for a lot of the unis.
Right.
We're maybe doing about 80% of universities at the time. And then we'd help run the freestyle side of competitions.
Right.
And then when it was out abroad, like in Alpe d'Huez and stuff, we'd do freestyle coaching and stuff as well.
Right.
From that point of view, apart from the year that I broke my back.
Tell me about that.
In Val d'Isère. Well, there's a true story and there's a story in my head. The story in my head, I was hitting a massive booter switch, caught my toe edge, spinning too soon, and I landed on my head. I had time in the air to think, do I have insurance? Which I didn't. I landed on my head and the whole thing, my whole body just compressed. But because I didn't have insurance, I then rode down. Yeah. And my mates had to lift me into the Gonde to get me down. Yeah. And I'd separated my shoulder and collarbone. And then the doctor's like, oh, you have broken your important bit of your back. And I'm like, what? But then over time, that jumps have got smaller and smaller going by other people's opinions. So yeah, that was not a good winter on that front. But again, carried on MCing on it. I was probably even less funny on that point. But yes, the syndicate, we've hooked up like a lot of good riders. Like there's actually a girl, Hoff. She's still competing.
Right.
She's competing in the Olympics, but ski freestyle.
Right.
So she won the Olympics. She won Big Air, X Games Big Air.
Right.
Some of our riders are now the coaches for Team GB. So like Ben Kinnear on the snowboard front, it's Jamie Matthews on the skis, Murray Buchan on the ski front as well. He was ski half pipe. So a lot of the guys that have been through us sort of thing have gone on to do some cool shit. Like my mate Gareth Vaughan, he's
one of the judges.
He's one of the judges, we that was all through. We ended up having to provide judging, and then they ended up going on course there. Vaughan is now, and he was one of my riders as well. You know, so it's quite cool when you're seeing people coming out of the whole thing from it. You know what I mean? It wasn't just printing hoodies and t-shirts. I mean, at its peak, somehow Syndicate ended up being in the scene.
Is it still a going concern?
And someone say again.
Is Syndicate still a going concern?
Yeah, so I sold it to my friends in Amsterdam because I sort of wrapped it all up knowing what was going to happen with Brexit.
Yeah.
Because there was a couple of years I had a factory in Pakistan, so I knew what all the import duties were going to be and stuff like that. If anyone's thinking of starting a clothing company, don't use a factory in Pakistan. we were out in Val Thorens, and it was the varsity championships. It was like Oxford, Cambridge. The most fun was just looking at everyone's surnames, and like we sold a ton of hoodies, and no one could understand it in time to pick up your hoodie, right?
Yeah.
And everyone crammed into this bar. Someone passed out. Like it was like being at a gig. You're just right, just settle. But the worst memory I have of it is it was dumping that big fat flakes, and I'm standing in lift line with JJ, and I'm like, you know what? Life's pretty good, isn't it? And I'll never forget it. This snowflake, the girl in front of us had this white varsity hoodie with a royal blue print, and the snowflake landed on the print and the ink started running. And I'm just like, kill me. And I was
mate.
And I'm just like, and I'm going, did you see that? And he's like, yeah, I didn't want to say. And I'm like, oh my God. So I contacted the factory, and the guy's like, just tell him it's dry clean only. And I'm like, dude, the print's coming off in the snow. It's just like, so that was a horrible experience on that front. But like I say, we're in Vogue. Someone put a thing on Twitter going, Syndicate's in Vogue, and there's this supermodel somehow wearing one of my snapbacks with a £20,000 see-through dress on. And I'm like, I don't know how that happened. But back then, the Telegraph done a feature on us because I was one of the first people to just use 100% recycled cotton and do the whole eco-friendly thing.
Yeah.
So it was like companies that are battling against working for the environment and battling against such and such sort of thing. So that was pretty cool, just getting that sort of recognition. But kind of like what you were saying about your lodge is it then just been fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So So yeah, it became, because I had the other businesses, I was taking holidays from my other jobs to work snowbombing and snowbox and those
Yeah.
other festivals.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just want to ride. I don't want to stand and sell hoodies. It's great meeting Kasabian and Carl Cox and all that sort of jazz, but at the same time, I just want to ride, you know?
Yeah, and also
And at
like
that
when
point, like I say, because Brexit was coming, it was like, right, let's just wrap it up. But it did mean that. Oh,
sorry, it's breaking up again. Are you there?
yep, I can hear you. I can hear
Yeah,
you.
well, I was just going to say, like, when you've got other things to do as well, and then you want a holiday, going and selling hoodies, it might be in the mountains, but it's still not a holiday, is it?
No, you're riding a couple hours in the morning and you're standing for 12 hours in -20
Yeah,
trying
and you
to.
got that responsibility on you and stuff. Like that becomes difficult to do as you get older.
It's a lot of pressure because as you get older, you're like, am I down with the kids? Is this
Yeah,
is these the designs that you want? Do you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
And you knew certain markets, so like we done snowbombing and snowbox and stuff, and you knew what their market was, so that was kind of easy. Despite sometimes I'm questioning if they thought that would sell,
yeah,
sort of thing. But it was good because every trip was a tax write-off. You know, you're like, got to go to Colorado to test out the new Hightower hoodie,
yeah,
um, and of course at the same time running parallel, I obviously had a team of riders. And then that meant we were doing stuff for the magazines as well at the same time. So you were getting coverage for Syndicate and you were having the fun of going and doing road trips and stuff, you know?
yeah. So it was about here that we gave up with Zoom. Hopefully you won't have noticed the edits so far. My day job as a music producer and mixing engineer, I do a lot of editing and I try and be good at it. But yeah, Zoom kind of failed us. So we reconvened a few days later and it was just after possibly the women's qualifying of the big air at the Olympics. So we get straight into that. So let's go back to sketch.
Snowboarding last night.
Snowboarding last night. What did you think?
Do you know what is funny is I always felt up until a certain point that girls snowboarding was better to watch because you could relate to it.
Yeah.
And now the standard is so amazing. You're just like, nope, that means absolutely nothing to me either. You know, it was phenomenal. I'm not saying I'm tertiary for the Olympics, but I've not been massive in the Olympics apart from like when Jenny done it. But I really got engrossed in that last night. It was phenomenal. And do you know what? There wasn't no how normally you're like, right, I want this person to fail so someone does better. You're just like,
Yeah.
right, you go get it. No, you go get it. You know what I mean? Obviously, with my love for Japan, I was cheering on the Japanese people as well. But
Yeah,
even
of
when the
course.
Korean girl dropped in at the end, you're like, no, just go get it. It was fucking amazing. Like, absolutely amazing. And Mia was so close. Like, there's part of me thinks if she threw her hands up, she could have claimed it a bit more and maybe still got a higher score.
I don't know,
but-
man. I mean, I'm going to assume that is not a trick that she's been putting down.
No, that was that's one where you've got your two scores locked in, and that was your betting with a profits sort of thing. You know what I mean?
But I thought the cab 14 was marked pretty low.
There was a couple. Got to watch what I'm saying because one of the judges is my mate,
Right.
who used to sponsor. But no, judges always fuck it up anyway. But there was a couple, and you did question how something is higher in qualifying than what it is in the final if it's the same trick. Surely that's your base mark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I'm like, is it bits where I heard Ed and Tim were phenomenal again. But I heard them saying, so did you get marked down now if you're grabbing your leg with your other hand? You know what I mean? And stuff like that. There is, don't get me wrong, there is not with the girls, definitely not with the girls, but I do feel that the big air is going towards the aerials of skiing back in the day.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Where you're just like you're pretty much just counting rather than just watching. You know what I mean? Because you're
yeah.
just trying to figure out how much they're spinning. And but the girls, there's bits where you're just like, have they slowed this down? You know, the spins were just so sick that it was just, yeah,
I
it was
definitely,
brilliant.
yeah. I mean, I definitely think it was more interesting to watch. There was more variety in the tricks,
Yeah,
bit more
no, for sure.
creativity, maybe. I mean, I don't want to diss the men for what they were doing because that was,
No, I mean, the
like
men,
just to do that is impressive. But like watching it with my family, who are very, very casual, like very casual viewers, they're just a bit like, oh, it just looks like everything's the same.
dude, yeah,
Like
I mean,
the nuance has been lost a bit, just in like an arms race of how many spins you're going to get done.
dude, absolutely. I feel that it's there is a part of it now where it's all airbag training, and it's you don't want to diss on it because the people, Jenny Jones is your perfect example, isn't it? Because she was like proper trampolinist before she got into snowboarding. So to
And Billy
have that,
Morgan.
yeah, so to have that awareness, I was disappointed with the size of crowd. You know, if they're building big stands for downhill racing, I think they should be building big stands and making more of a feature on the big air side of things.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the fine lines, and I'd rather the fine lines were decided on what someone's poked out a bit more or a more difficult grab, as opposed to it looks like she scratched her foot while she was, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's a shame on that sort of thing. I feel that was the right outcome, you know. And I feel that the the Olympic spirit was definitely personified in last night with the girls. They all just seemed so stoked on each other. You know what I mean?
Well, I think
Um,
the format really worked for the girls because it did come down to like everyone had to throw down at the end to keep their positions. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah.
was not certain who was going to win going into
No,
those
there
last runs.
wasn't. There
Like
wasn't someone just.
there was quite a few people that could have taken it at any point.
Yeah, and there wasn't someone just. I'm a bit gutted that Anna Gasser just didn't pull out a massive method when she had nothing to win anyway.
Well, I think that with like as well, Maisie Hill. Do you know what I mean? In the qualies, you
Yeah,
just think, well, if you've thrown 2 runs, just do a method on your last run and be like, I'm a
that's the
snowboarder.
photo. That's what everyone's then going to use. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
for is that just us that want to see that?
I think that's a very much a
Yeah, because we're
snowboarder's
like,
perspective.
yeah. I mean, put it this way: I think I completed my first method last year. So,
I'm trying to bring the
that's
method back. I've been stretching a lot to try and get it back. It's been a while.
oh. Did you have a method in you?
I think I had a relatively decent one. Yeah, I've seen some footage, and
Right, nice.
I think it was all right. I think that might have been the best thing that I could do. I mean, that is not a stacked field of tricks.
No, but you know what? I remember reading somewhere that people are like, that's pretty much the hardest trick. Like
Oh,
the
I don't know.
hardest straight is definitely the hardest straight.
Straight air, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, I think the hardest straight air for people like us would be trying to bone someone out without our knee popping out or our back going.
I think just
Yeah.
getting all the way. I think getting all the way down to your board's a fucking result.
Dude, I was riding Glen Shea at the weekend, and me and my mate Jamie Newell, he was the first guy ever sponsored the syndicate. And we went up, and our whole plan was to just go backcountry and just split, but it was the Avi risk was pretty high. So we just started, we took both our boards and we just started lapping before all the hunters sort of got their higher equipment together. And it's great seeing Scotland so busy right now.
Yeah.
And the industry's been saved with this season. But anyway, because I was looking at the Avi reports, there's a specific Avi page for Scotland, believe it or not. And I just seen this picture of one of the ski huts pretty much buried. And I was like, that's our go-to. So we're actually able to reach that with just a short hike over Glen Shee's got like 3 valleys sort of thing. And then we just sessioned. We were riding onto the roof and then sending it exclamation marks, quotation marks off it. Holy shit! We were like, right, we'll film it. We'll just film it. And even then, we're like, did we get the grab? And it was everything. It was absolutely everything to just get it long enough to even get a still out of it on the film, you know. And then Jamie's like, oh, my knees and back are going to be so sore because it's quite a flat landing sort of thing. And you're just like, here's us trying to grab it for a nanosecond, you know what I mean? And then in the big air, these guys are like, oh, you kind of let go of the grab a bit early there. You're just like, I think if I grabbed onto it like they had, I don't think I'd be able to let go. You know,
no, I'd probably put my back out, coming straightening up again. Do you know what I mean?
Oh man, yeah, the arthritis would kick in. You're just like, I'm locked in. He's locked in. No, he
literally landed on your fingers.
Yeah, I'd done that once when we were out in Vale. We were seeing who could hold the grab the longest. And it was like a sort of shifty, stiffy indie, and I'm just like, hold it, and literally like almost landed on my fingers. It's like, yeah, probably wasn't the smartest move back then, but it was all good.
But I do believe, I mean, I'm stoked. I'm stoked on the BBC's coverage of the snowboarding, like having Tim and Gend and Jenny.
Yeah,
presenting it to the world's definitely, you know, like there is no one better to present snowboarding to the wider world.
I think we're obviously biased because they're our friends, but I think they've got better.
Yeah,
you know, I think the camaraderie is just even better, and like even last night, I loved it. Was so natural, like someone putting a question. And I don't know if that was a piss take or not, but it was like, do you get or lose points for grabbing your board?
Yeah.
But the way Ed just naturally flowed into explaining, because I guess it is like to my dad, you know what I mean? It's like speaking Mandarin, do you know what I mean? When he's just like, yeah, that's a cab 9, you know, and he was like, what? So I thought they'd done a good way of explaining it, but I think these guys are so genuine on that. And I think I caught a wee bit of Lindsay Vonn wrecking herself. Did you see that?
I caught the crash, yeah.
Oh, so she was riding with, she'd bust her ACL the week before or whatever. But Kemi Alcott was genuine. It was good having a proper, like, someone in the sport, you know, and she was totally greeting, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I like how they've stuck to professionals on that sort of thing, but it's just not dry, you know what I mean? It's just fun to listen to.
Yeah, but it's got the spirit of, I mean, I've always sort of seen British, I know you're Scottish, but if we catch all term, you know, like if we sort of look at the whole culture of snowboard, certainly British snowboard, I've always thought, you know, and I've said this with Louis from Duke as well, like I think there's like a slight eccentricity to it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's, even though like people say it's mainstream, it's not mainstream. It's definitely still kind of existing in the fringes, and it is full of these kind of quite odd characters, you know, lovely odd characters. And I hope it always continues to have that. And kind of, you know, I would definitely put Ed and Tim as, you know, a pair of, in the real world, quite odd characters.
Yeah.
But in snowboarding, they fit right in. But they do appreciate, like, how to show that all these eccentricities to the world, but they don't lose themselves. What makes it fun in the translation? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, dude, totally. And it's one of those, you'll be the same, where you have your snowboard friends and then you've got real life.
I don't have real life.
Yeah, I was just making it up. Everyone fucking hates
Well, I mean, I've got music friends, but they also exist in the not real life category as well.
But I bet those music friends, because you snowboard, they see you as some crazy wild guy. Oh, you're the snowboard guy. Do you know what I mean? And it's, I think from the outside, like I got a message from my dad, and he's like 74, and he's like, I'm watching the snowboarding Big Air, and he's like, just hearing them crank up the bindings, and it's so real. And
Yeah.
and he has, like, in my whole time snowboarding, he was interested when I wanted to be a footballer, but not so much the snowboard side of things. But they've just got, and my sister, and they've just got totally engrossed in the whole thing as well. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, and I think, sorry, someone's calling me. And I think it is good that we've not, or like I said, Tim and Ed haven't diversed into just being boring about it. You know what I mean? They've still kept to Stoke, and I think in a sense that personifies British snowboarding, doesn't it? You had to be that little bit out there, not in saying, oh, I'm fucking crazy, but you had to be crazy enough to drive for hours to ride on plastic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
totally.
and yeah, and I think you're right that that does sum up British snowboarding in the sense that, like, I know we'll come on to it, but like my first comp I think was down in High Wycombe. So from here, that was like a 8 hour drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To ride ride
Yeah, well, we
plastic.
talked about it earlier on, and I say earlier on to the listener because they'll be listening to it in a linear thing, but we talked about this like last week, didn't we?
Ah,
Like
okay.
your first
So
comp. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean, well, I mean, I'm similar to that. The first time I saw sort of British snowboarding in real life, we drove from, southeast London to Pembrey in Wales,
yeah,
which is, like pretty much as far as you can get. Just because I was like, oh, there's a competition on. I don't even know that I was really like a fully formed snowboarder at that point. I was just kind of along just to sort of see what it was.
mm,
And you drive fucking hours and hours and hours to turn up at to sleep in a car at a dry slope just because that's where everybody is on that given time. Do you know what I mean?
that's where the like-minded people are.
Yeah,
And it wasn't like back then when it was like a case of FOMO, because that phrase hadn't been created. You just genuinely wanted to meet like-minded people, but you wanted to learn from these guys as
yeah,
well. And of course, pre-internet, this was the way you find out about how to do seasons and
yeah,
what there was out there. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's still, like, the week before I'd been at a freeride comp at Glenshee, and then when I still had my stuff on when I'm back home, and they're like, "What have you been up to today?" And you're like, "Oh, I've been snowboarding." And like, there's what in Scotland is still, like, the majority of people are not aware.
really.
Oh, dude, it's mad. It's pretty frightening. But I think in everything you can become a bit insular. You would have been the same with your lodge back in the day, thinking, right, everyone must know about it. I was the same with Syndicate or with, like,
Yeah,
the British Uni Champs. You're just like, well, everyone must know. And it's only once you step away from it, you're like, oh, hang on a minute. There is other stuff out here,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
and yeah, so I think it's the same thing. If you're passionate about something, you don't understand how other people aren't. So then you're even more shocked when people aren't aware. I mean, on a Japan front, anytime if it's not someone who rides, people are like, oh, I didn't know there was snow in Japan.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, 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 totally. Well, I mean, I
that's
guess, just I want to come back to the Scotland thing, just because it is, I know we talked about that before, and I mentioned, like going to big Tesco's in your snowboarding kit's like a real novelty
yeah,
and a real, like a real odd thing, especially for me where I live. But yeah, I'm fascinated when you say that there's a lot of people in Scotland who don't even appreciate the fact that you could go skiing or snowboarding in Scotland. Do you think that? Do you think? You just think
I think
everyone would because it's there.
yeah,
Why?
yeah. I
Why
mean,
wouldn't you?
so what I would say from that is you've got your core, you've got your passionate guys, but then there's just people think that, well, it is tiny in comparison to the world, but it's still a lot for someone, say, from Edinburgh, Glasgow, to drive up to the mountains. So, for instance, My nearest one's Glenshee. I stay in St Andrews. That's about an hour north of Edinburgh. So maybe an hour 45. We've got a comp up at the Nevis Range at Fort William week on Saturday, but that's like three and a bit hours, and that's presuming that the roads are fine and stuff. But you can go. I also do a lot of running and stuff like that, and golf. You can, like, from me, I'll still to go up this golf course called Dornoch, Royal Dornoch. That's 4.5 hour drive from here. You know what I mean? So Scotland is big, and I think people don't want to invest the time, and people nowadays, yes, I'm old, but don't want to invest the time unless they know someone's going to be perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Scotland couldn't be further from that in terms of how snow sure it is, or wind sure, or anything else. So I think that, in a sense, is why people are unaware of it, because they don't want to look into it. And, well, if we're using you as an example, it's easier for you to fly to the Alps than it is to come up to Scotland. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But for Scottish people, they always say if you ride in Scotland, you've got to just be eternally optimistic. You know what I mean? You've got to be foolhardy and optimistic. And it is that way. We've been up where we'll hike. Me and my mate would hike Glencoe, and we couldn't see in front of our faces for hours. And then we got to the top, and then it just cleared up.
Yeah.
It cleared up enough for us to see there wasn't any snow to ride, but we got the views at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're just like, we're out in the mountains. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, when we go up, anything's a bonus. You know, but we've had. I mean, dude, I've done my seasons in Vail. We've travelled the world, and I've still had some of my best days in Scotland. But some of the funniest days as well. You know, like there'd be some early seasons back in the day, like October. There was enough snow, and we went up to the Lecht, and it was with the Rome guys and a guy Jamie Reich. I don't know if you remember him, but anyway, we built a road gap jump because obviously that was in all the movies. How hard can it be?
Yeah.
And we spent ages building this jump, and then you done the rock paper scissors. So Jamie, don't know if did you ever never figure out if you've lost or won by going first? You know what I mean? But anyway, he drops in, does a couple of things. We're like, no, you got to go fast. You got to go fast. And dude, I'm not exaggerating. You obviously had to clear a road, you know, but the height was maybe the height of your house you were dropping off of, sort of thing. So he comes absolutely charging in. And if he reached the white line, that's further than I think he went. But he literally just dropped. It was like jumping off his house in the middle of the road. Hits the concrete as he's sliding along. At this point, no one's running to say, "Oh, you okay?" Everyone's just picking up the boards going, "Well, that's not going to work." We're just like on to the next thing. There's another time at the Lecht. We'd driven up, and the first road in Britain that always closes is Tom and Toole Road, and it's like over the hills between Braemar and the Lecht. So we get up, and just at that, they close the snow gates. And we're like, and the policeman's going, "Right, you need to go via Moray or whatever." And I'm like, "Where's that?" And it was like a 90-mile detour, and we were like 2 miles from the Lecht. And I'm going, "Yeah, but we've got a 4-wheel drive." And he's going, "Yeah, 4-wheel drives will make it, but others won't." So he drives away, and then we were young, and I'm sorry for this, but we thought it'd be clever to just take the snow gate off the hinges and then drive up. So we were like, okay, guys behind us, right, just put this back when we were done. Yeah, sure. So then we drive up, and we're getting closer and closer. It's absolutely dumping. It was going to be a great day. And then we just see the police car coming towards us, this Discovery, and we're like, "Oh, nightmare." And then we're like, get closer to the edge. He's moving further across, and then he stops. He's like, "How the fuck did you get up here?" And I'm like, "I just drove up." Stonegate's there. I'm like, "No, it wasn't there when we were there." "No, you're going to need to go around." We're like, we're 100 meters from the Lecht. He's like, still wanting us to do this 90-mile detour. And I'm like, fuck. So we turn around as we're driving back, dude. There's a bit called Devil's Elbow and stuff. The guy hadn't put the snow gate back on, so everyone had tried to drive up, and they're all stuck on the road. And we're like driving back going, "Oh, fuck. So anyway, we stop at the hotel and we're just going to hike. And then we just see the police car come tanking down. Blue light flashing. He looks at me and goes, I want to drive that car in here now. Did you or did you not take it off the hinges? I'm like, no. There's loads of people there. So anyway, we got off a warning and then we hiked up, done some runs, and then we paid the gritter driver a tenner back then to take us back and drop us at the top of the hill to ride down.
No, right.
And we had to have a police escort, and it was the copper that had done us earlier had to give us a police escort. So yeah, there's some great days we done. Document back in the day, we'd done some trips with them. So we'd done a Scottish trip, and we were actually meant to be the first people to ride down one of the faces at Ben Nevis.
Right.
So Russ had got in touch with Visit Scotland or Scottish Tourism or whatever, and they'd got us a heli for riding.
No
we're
way.
Like, oh my God. So we're like, this is going to be all time. So we had the lodges and everything else. It'd all been put up, and Red Bull had sponsored us. I don't drink, but I do like a bit of sugar. I ended up like shotgunning 6 cans of Red Bull in 30 seconds. And I thought I had to lie down. I thought my heart was going to explode. I actually thought it was going to explode. As it happened, it'd been a really dry season in Scotland. So they couldn't afford the fuel to take us and do runs. Right. So when we got to Nevis, the heli was still in the car park for us, but we couldn't use it. And we're like, absolute gutter, you know. It's just like some hottie going, yeah, well, I think you're great, but I gotta go. And you're just like, no. So they were great. They ended up building kickers, and we were jumping over the cats and stuff like that. But that was another one. And then for the reason, we done 5 resorts in one day. So if you don't know, Scotland's got 5 ski resorts. And they're, as we're saying, it's a bit of a mission, but I don't know why I thought this would be a good idea, but I thought it'd just make for good.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I don't know how doable it is, but...
So, well, we'd done it. And when we got to...
No, come on, tell the story. What time in the morning were you at the first one? You know, like, what's the mileage, all that stuff?
Well, this was the thing. We ended up doing it twice. So the first time, I ended up borrowing my mate's. He had like an X5. And I was like, right, we'll need it for Scotland sort of thing. So I think we got up at... There's people come from Glasgow and Edinburgh. So we met at Glen Shee. That was our first spot. So I was up at about 4 a.m. And then we're there sort of pre-lift sort of thing, but sun coming up, just so we could just hit something, build something. So again, the snow wasn't great. So we ended up, there was like there's a wee burn runs through there. It's called the Plastic Poma, just down from the cafe. So we just built a gap jump over the stream sort of thing, and then just done some acid drops from the bridge and stuff like that. Then it was straight in the car, and by now we're already soaking. So you're jumping in with wet clothes, and you're like, brilliant. Then it's up to the left, which is about another hour and 15. And at this point, a lot of the snow had melted. And God, I can't remember his surname, Guy Rich. Again, we done rock, paper, scissors. He got the short straw. So the plan was he had to sit in his pants in this Ringo, sort of, not the tubes, not how to do the tubing for instead of sledging. So he sat in that with a can of Red Bull. And then I rode down and then just like tail pressed. I'd done a lot of wakeboarding back then, so I just tail pressed the whole big puddle and just sprayed him with all this slushy water. That was the shot. He pretty much got pneumonia for the rest of the trip because we were just back in the van. And next stop was the Cairngorms, who traditionally have been pretty shit when it comes to all that sort of stuff. When we done another document trip, every other resort was like, whatever you want. These guys were like, we'll give you 2 tickets, even though there was like 6 riders or whatever. And they wouldn't let us park in the top car park. We're like, look, we're doing this challenge. So we had to then get the bus. So that just totally threw our time. But there was like some great shots again. Like, I think Jamie Newell, maybe it was another time, just dropped off the platform. And it was a massive acid drop off the platform over the back and stuff. that was that. Then it was on to Fort William, which from Cairngorm's about another 2.5 hours.
Really? Yeah.
And again, it wasn't the nicest day. You weren't getting the views. And for the Nevis range, the only access you can get is via the Gondi. The gondola takes you up to the sort of mid station, which is where you can get all your pomas and chairs and stuff. And there is stuff over the back as well. But again, we're just in a rush to try and get a shot of something.
Yeah.
And then we finished up Glencoe, which is again about an hour from Nevis Range, and we finished in the dark, so we just didn't get any good shots at all.
Shit,
so Samson's like, he's seen the photos, I'd done the words, and he's like, you know what Samson's like? He's like, nah, that's shite. And you're like, okay, cool. And then he came back going, do you want to try again next year? And the riders were all like, fuck that was horrible. Stevie McKenna was photographer, great guy, and yeah, he was just like, absolutely. And then because I'm the guy writing, so it was like, okay, yeah, sure. So we done it again next time, but we done it in reverse.
Right.
So we didn't have to be dependent on the Gondi and stuff like that. And then Avi Moore, Cairngorms cut us a bit more slack. And we managed to lap it. There's a great shot of Gladys, Mark McClement, that rode for Rome. He now lives out in Japan.
Right.
And he's just doing like hillside rodeo over a waterfall at Glencoe and stuff. It's such a sick shot. There's a really good one of me brushing my teeth, I think. And we finished at Glen Shee, and fair play to them. They stayed. The resort was shut. The sun was setting. But they'd put rails up for us up at Butcher's Gully and just took us up in the sleds so we could get some shots. And it was just brilliant. And it's such a cool claim because I would say there's only a handful of people who've ever done it. And I've definitely guaranteed it. I'm probably the only guy that's done it twice, you know. But it just brings back the spirit of riding in Scotland. You know, it's like, it is what it is, and it's what you make of it. But it was good for just raising awareness for Scottish ski resorts, you know. I mean,
amazing.
This week the Nevis opened, and that's the first time that all 5 Scottish ski resorts have been open at the same time since 2010 or something like that. Which just shows you how shit it's been. But
it's mad, isn't it? Did you see Leslie's movie Thrawn?
Yes,
and some of the old footage in that, and there's like so many people,
dude,
up there, and it's and you just think, well, should be more like, you know, it's a shame that it's become unreliable, that people don't have it down as their first option.
Yeah, and I think there should be. We touched on it. I don't know how much you're putting in of what we spoke about before or whatever, but we touched on it before about schools and trying to educate and make people do this sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I guess if you're more snowshoer, you could turn around and say, right, everyone's going up this Wednesday. You know what I mean? Like, I know at unis, for instance, Wednesday's your sports day sort of thing. That's when all the clubs will have their matches and stuff like that. And obviously in Colorado and stuff, there's time set aside for schools to go ski and all that kind of thing. And it feels like, I know it's a mission, and I know there's a lot on in the world nowadays, but in a sense, that'd be a great escape. I think it just makes you a stronger person as well. If you're falling on your ass, you're dealing with high winds and everything else, but you're all in it together, then I think that's a good bonding thing for kids, and it's definitely keeping them off their phones. You know what I mean? And
I think there's, you know, even a shitty day, chances are you'll be smiling at the end of it, even if the weather's bad or, you know, the snow's a bit shit or whatever. Like, I think being a snowboarder teaches you to kind of make the best of something.
Yeah.
And always, you know, persevere a little bit, and you'll probably end up with a smile on your face. Do you know what I mean? Even if it's just to like, fucking hell, that was awful. Tomorrow won't be as bad as that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But my thing at the weekend was, we couldn't see it start. You're just going with the feel of the groomers, knowing that, okay, it must be all right because it's groomed. But then the sun came out for at least 5 seconds, and you're just like, right, this is going to make it look way better than it was. But then my thing at the end was there's people that have just stayed in bed or just done nothing that day. And we've got up the hill and we've actually been smiling. You know what I mean? You're not getting that just sat in your house scrolling. You know, it's
totally.
and it is. I think it does make you stronger on that side of things. It also just makes you more aware of your surroundings. You're finding yourself reading up more on weather and avi reports and stuff like that. I mean, that day, dude, someone got caught in a slide in Scotland. Fell 150 meters. So there's glass malls over the back. That was always in the red zone, and it wasn't someone touring or that. It was just people walking, and he fell through the cornice.
Shit.
And then triggered the slide. So when I was leaving, there was a heli. Glen Sheed provided like one of the cats to take volunteers across and everything else. All the blue lights were going. They saved them. They found them and saved them. But I mean, that's the thing. And I don't know if maybe people down south realise the extremities of Scotland as well. You know, when you're saying about Leslie's movie and stuff like that, I think there was bits in it as well, just showed how extreme it can be and conditions can just switch.
Well, speaking of avalanches in the UK, Scotland can fuck off on this little fact, because actually Sussex can claim the avalanche with the deadliest avalanche in the UK ever.
Oh, wow. When was that?
Fucking like 100 years ago or something. In Lewis, there's in the Downs, and there's like these chalk sort of cliffs, and underneath there were some houses, and like must have been a freak because of the orientation of it. It's sort of west facing, so the snow must have come in from the east and built up on this hill above it. But obviously the people living below had never even considered, probably didn't even know what an avalanche was.
Yeah.
Let alone, fucking consider the fact that they lived underneath quite a big hill.
Fuck.
And it fucking killed a load of people.
Fucking hell.
And now there's a pub there called the Snowdrop Inn.
Oh, that seems that's a bit trolly.
I know.
Well, so how many people died?
I don't know. It was quite a lot. I'll have to do a little fact check on that and find out the proper stats before this goes out and clarify it. But it's pretty wild, isn't it? Not to sort of belittle, this guy and everything, that because obviously Scotland is proper mountains.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's double figures die every year in the hills in Scotland. Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of trail running and stuff. And in the summer, I went out on like a 50k run on the hills. And there was a hut, and it turned out it was named after some army guy who went out for a run on the same route. It's called Jock's Trail. So it's about a 10-hour back and forth sort of thing. And they built this hut because he just got stuck on the hill. Conditions changed. He just didn't have what was needed to survive, sort of thing. Yeah. And then he died. And that was an army guy. Do you know what I mean? Out on the hill. Don't get me wrong, there's other people out there that you're going somewhere and there's folk in Yeezys and flip-flops and everything. You're just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
But it can get, I've had it where you just get so disorientated up there, once the clouds come in, and then you look at your Strava and you're like, God, I was right along that cliff line or whatever, and I'm still a bit of a noob when it comes to the splitboarding side of things, so I try and keep it. If I can't get a guide, I'll keep it within sight of the ski resort so where you're going, sort of thing. But it can get pretty gnarly. I mean, I think last weekend there was maybe 10 different things where Mountain Rescue had to save people.
Really?
Around the hills and the mountains of Scotland. You know what I mean? So it is pretty respect to those guys that are volunteers and going out and doing that shit. That's
big shout out to those guys.
And if you are going to be going out there, don't be a dick.
Or generally any time, just don't be a dick.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, totally. But think about you're putting other people's lives at risk if you're not prepared for it. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Well, look, I mean, we've still got loads of stuff from the previous session. So we don't kind of need to go over any of that. Is there anything that we've missed?
I don't know if I spoke much about road trips and stuff like that. I'm a bit of a disaster when it comes to keys and driving and police and things like that. So I can give a brief summary. We were out it was varsity Oxford, Cambridge, and I lost the van keys the day we were leaving.
Nice.
And that's when I had syndicate, and we had at least 200 bin bags of t-shirts and hoodies that we had to go through to try and find the keys.
Shit.
And they weren't there, so I had to put out a reward and an announcement at resort, and someone found the keys and scored €150. Another time driving to the British Uni Champs, I ran out of petrol. I have a thing of it's too much effort to put fuel in so I can see how far it'll go on 0 miles. And this time it didn't go as far as I'd hoped. So turns out the van had broken down in front of a French speed camera thing. And I just decided I'll run. It was about 5 miles to the petrol station. So I ran to the petrol station. And then the police picked me up in a Subaru to take me back. But little did I know that where I'd parked out, and my mates said that the police were coming in the motorbikes, but they're trying to film the guy in the motorbike, and the cop was like waving, going, no filming, then fell off his bike, which just put them on even more tilt with us and stuff. I think one of the highlights, remember the Brit Games, was a year where we didn't get the Brits for sponsorship or whatever. So I think it was around about 2001. So me and Scott Todd created a thing called the Brit Games. It's meant to be a play on the X.
I sort of got a vague recollection of that. Tell me about that.
So that was in Meyerhofen. So it was all kind of last minute. My idea was it was meant to be like the X Games, and hence it called the Brit Games sort of thing. So we put together a whole lot of last minute sponsorship and stuff like that. And my mate Danny had got me into snowboarding. We kind of had a road trip. Crusher had all his sort of Rome or Silence boys or whoever it was at the time. And then we were like, we just followed each other, like, we'll stay in Belgium overnight, just in like a lay-by sort of thing. So anyway, it's like, right, we'll go via London. We're like, okay. So we managed to score a load of Red Bull. My mate had, it was like an old postie van that he had transferred to put a futon in the back and a fridge and everything else. And then we're like, right, here we're going. He's going, no, I'm just going via Edinburgh. Met these guys in a pub last night, so they're going to come as well. I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? And this van's tiny as it is, and there's like 4 or 5 of us in this van.
Jesus.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So we drive to London, we pick up all the branding and stuff like that. And then we're like, right, what's in these boxes? So we open up one of the boxes, and it was Aero Snows. So Aero had sponsored the Big Air because it was Big Air with the bubbles. So we literally lived off white chocolate Aeros and Red Bull for this road trip. And then we pull in to Belgium in this lay-by, and everyone got, I don't drink, like I said, everyone got hammered. And in the morning, I'm like, right, I'll drive Danny. And Danny's going, no, I've got this. And I'm like, no. And he's in the driver's seat facing the wrong way. He's still like absolutely wasted. I'm like, no, I got this. So we get in and we're like, right, we're off. And we're following Scott. And I'm driving, everyone's flashing me. Turns out that Scott and Danny wanted more bevy, and there was a bottle of vodka in the roof box. So they got the bottle of vodka, never put the roof box back on properly. So when we're driving along the motorway, people's bags were flying off the roof. And I'm like, so I had to pull over, and it was like Frogger. I'm like, Autobahn, sprinting to grab rucksacks and stuff. Absolutely shitting myself getting these bags. And I'm like, and then we were getting close to Meyerhofen. And then traffic does that thing where it snarls up for no reason or whatever. And by this time, Danny's in the back and he's having a smoke. And he goes to tip out all the ash. And it all went over me. And I turned around and I'm like, fuck you doing? And as I turned around, I crashed into the back of this guy's car. And then the police were coming, but of course you're only allowed two. It's only the amount of seats.
Yeah.
So everyone else is hiding in the bushes whilst the police are dealing with me crashing into this guy, and I wasn't insured. And the Brit Games was a good crack in Whitehofen. You know, it wasn't the Brits, but it's still. I think I dislocated my shoulder trying to race Stu Brass in the slalom or something like that. There was still that was back in the day. Jamie Baker,
Jazzy B, yeah.
Yeah, so in the half pipe and stuff like that. But it was a good week for for a last minute, and at least it kept the momentum of the Brits going. Otherwise, you don't know how that was going to fare, you know.
Are you likely to go to the Brits now it's back on? Is that something that you could be interested in?
I don't know. I like to look at a board test for just like catching up with people and stuff like that. You know, it just depends on the dates and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's with when I do work, it kind of always falls late when my work's starting to go, sort of thing. You know, on the police in the France front, there was. When we were at Alpe d'Huez, we were doing night sessions off the roofs and rails and stuff, and pretty much we're getting chased around Alpe d'Huez by the police. Got a really sick shot of me dropping off a bridge. I'm like, landings are overrated, so they're still on that. Thank you, Steve McKenna. It looks amazing. And other times the police got stopped, they had machine guns out for whatever reason. There was a guy one year got lifted because he had a Bob Marley t-shirt on, had a picture of weed, and the police just lost their shit on that. And because we were always setting up pop-up stores for Syndicate all over the place, the police were never totally stoked on that sort of thing. And then the worst instance with me and Keys was, I actually got over 1 million views online with this one, was I was going to the gym, and as I leant in to get my gym bag, my keys must have fallen out my pocket and hit the button. So when I shut the side door of the van, the whole van just locked. And I was like, fuck. Right, okay. Now, people will say that this wasn't the best idea, but the spare key was attached to the other keys, so I didn't lose it.
That's a solid logic in my brain, that is.
Genius, absolute genius. So I called out the RAC, they couldn't get in. Called out a locksmith, he couldn't get in. I've got my dog in the front, so then I was like, right, I'll smash a window. It wasn't summer or anything, but I obviously don't really want to just smash a window anyway. So I thought I could smash a window and get in from underneath the seat. You know how some of the vans have a wee bit in there. Couldn't do that. I then tried to get a drill and drill through the bulkhead to climb in through. That didn't work. And 7 hours later, someone with a still saw came and cut a hole in the bulkhead, and I had to bend it, and I had to climb into the back of the van.
No way. And
of course, I'm doing this whole thing, sort of live streaming it, sort of thing. That was the chaos of that. So yeah, me and, like I said before, I like to say that sketch was down to all my drawing and stuff, but I think I'm just a fucking car crash, you know. It's,
all right, well, that's a good segue actually into the last section, I think. Because obviously looking back on all your time of snowboarding, and you know, not looking too far back because you're obviously still going after it as much as possible. But sum up what snowboarding means to you.
It sounds so shallow, dude, but it just means everything. You know, it's what makes me work more, put the hours in. It's what puts a smile on my face if I'm having a shit day, knowing that I've got a day up north, or I've got a trip coming to Japan or Europe or America. It's something that I feel bonds everyone forever. You know, you can bump into someone in the street that you've not seen for 20, 30 years, but you used to compete with or whatever, and you've instantly got that bond where they'll understand about a powder day or just about eating shit or whatever. They can instantly relate to what you're talking about. And I feel that snowboarding just makes you want to not just explore where you can go in the world to ride and stuff like that, but I feel that it also then just makes you open your mind to everything else in life. I feel it just makes you a better person, because it makes you a more positive person with your outlook, you know. And I feel that if you look at if you listen to all the past episodes of Thank You Snowboarding, you'll find that people you're interviewing have gone on to do remarkable things. You know what I mean? And I think that's because it creates a certain mindset for those people, you know. And I feel that without it, for me personally, it's just like I would just feel lost. I wouldn't. I'd feel I can't I can understand people's circumstances of how they can't do it, but I would make all the sacrifices in the world to still be able to do it. You know what I mean? So I'll at the moment I train twice a day, you know, minimum. So I'm fit for going snowboarding. I'll take on extra jobs so I can go away snowboarding, and I'll not buy shit, and I'll not eat out as much and everything else. Still almost with season air vibes, but just in a bigger picture, just so I can go, you know.
Yeah.
And there's no, I don't think there's many sports in the world where that change in the air, or a magazine gets released, or a latest clip gets released, where you can pick up the phone, either text or call someone who you've not spoke to for 6 months or 6 years, and just be, have you seen the new Burton movie, or have you listened to the latest podcast? You know what I mean? I feel that it's a sport that unifies everyone, and I feel that it's something that's more important than ever in this horrible, horrible world that's getting created right now. That people need that escape, and I think that snowboarding brings that escape for everyone, no matter what your level.
So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a real pleasure chatting with Sketch. Feels like I've known him a long time, even though that was the first time we've actually had a conversation. And yeah, someone who is just frothing for snowboarding still after all these years. He's got, I could see on the webcam, like, you know, he's got Scove artwork on his ceiling, and you know, he's up in the highlands as much as often as possible. You know, gets to Japan, he gets around, and yeah, kind of what a inspiring, friendly, interesting, funny guy. Thank you, Sketch, for your time. I appreciate it. I do apologise for the Zoom connection. I assume it was my end, but who knows? Zoom normally really good. Actually, on this occasion, a bit shit. But yeah, all right. So what else? Yeah, we're kind of in that, as I said at the top, the natural selection is happening. May have already happened. I don't know how long it's on for. But if you haven't seen any of that, then that'll be worth going back to watch highlights for sure. If not, try and watch the whole thing, because it really is, it's kind of snowboarders snowboarding. That's, for me, that's like the pinnacle of what snowboarders are trying to become, or trying to be, or trying to get to, in my mind. I mean, obviously, if you're, I guess that might be an old school kind of idea, but for me, yeah, like, if you imagine yourself as a pro snowboarder, it's doing that sort of thing rather than hitting icy kickers at the Olympics. But the Olympics was cool. Just very, very different, and a very small part of the bigger picture of snowboarding. Been talking a lot with people about that, you know, kind of the competition stuff, and what you see on the TV and mainstream TV is a very, very small percent of the experience of snowboarding. Like, I think the wins in snowboarding are having a great day and then coming down, last run, racing to the bottom, having a pint with your mates outside in the sunshine in the springtime, with wet boots and wet gloves and big smiles on your face. That, to me, is a win. Doing a season is a win. You know, a trip with your mates is a win. All this stuff, you know, like the actual competition side is a very small part of the experience of snowboarding. And if you're new to this podcast, then sort of, I think you'll probably get over time, if you go back and listen, that not many people are talking about the competition side of snowboarding, but everybody's talking about like what it does for your brain and how it gets you out of like the world we live in for a small amount of time, which is really, really important. So yeah, not a lot to mention this week. The TSA have got their sale on. If you are after any new kit and you need some advice, or you know what you want and they stock it, then go and see those guys. They're doing deals at the moment. They will sort you out for sure. But they've got the best knowledge and advice than you can shake a stick at. So big shout out to them. Also got to send a lot of love to Dan and Lizzie at Burton, who have been so supportive of the camp, which, as you listen to this, is only a week away. We are full, which is amazing. Thank you so much to everyone that's booked. And I don't think it's a leap of faith, because me and Kate have got form in looking after people in the Alps before. But obviously, this is the first time we've done anything for a while. So thank you to everyone who's booked to come, for your faith in me and us to put together what should be a brilliant week of snowboarding. Everything's kind of in place. Just need to get ourselves out there now and keep doing those snow dances for snow. If you haven't booked your trip out yet, then Easter's a great time to go snowboarding. Longer days, slush, which, call it poor man's powder, but I'll take that any day of the week. I'll take it over bulletproof peace, that's for sure. So, yeah, if you haven't been out yet, then do get yourself out. If you can, do get yourself out to the mountains. Life is pretty short, and a week of snowboarding or a few days snowboarding will guarantee lift your spirits for sure. So yeah, Dan and Lizzie at Burton have been really kind and helpful. Oakley have kicked in some bits and pieces for the camp. Start Socks also. Park Coffee, who are supplying us with coffee for the trip. Yeah, lots of people just being really positive, and it's all really great and heartwarming stuff. Matt Barr on his Looking Sideways podcast has had some really interesting things. He had Ed and Tim's, I think I mentioned this last week, but this week he's got Leslie McKenna, who is being a previous guest on this. I've known Leslie for a long time, but she's really good friends with Matt, and she's been doing some scientific stuff, and it's really, really fascinating about, it kind of hinges around like why snowboarding is not quite like any other sport, and why people don't quite understand how the progression works in snowboarding and all that kind of stuff. So if you are interested in that kind of thing, then go and give that a listen. That's all good stuff as well. I'm going to call it there for this week. I hope you're all well. I hope your brains are all staying on top of things. Probably staying off social media right now is a good idea. But if you are on social media, then go and check out Thank You Snowboarding podcasts on Instagram. We'll be clipping up bits from the natural selection and whatnot. So if you haven't seen it and you want to see some of that stuff, then go over there and have a look. There's also some bits and pieces up on our YouTube channel, which is Thank You Snowboarding. And if you want to get in touch about anything at all, if you just want to tell me about how much you love snowboarding, then thankyouSnowboarding@gmail.com. Be great to hear from you. All right. My throat is rapidly falling apart, so I'm going to leave you there. See you next week, 10 a.m. Thank you, snowboarding. Peace.